members of the board, members of staff, and the public. Before I get into my regular report, I want to take this opportunity to make our formal disclosure of labor agreements. The city charter requires that we, 15 days prior to your consideration of voting on labor agreements, that we disclose them in a public meeting. So we're using today's meeting to do that. We have concluded the negotiations for 8 labor contracts that the SFMTA has negotiated with the unions that represent the agency's service-critical employees. And this includes managers, machinists, parking control officers, station agents, car cleaners, electrical workers, transit supervisors, automotive service workers, transit fare inspectors, and transit operators. So a great majority of our employees are designated as service critical and are under contracts that we negotiate for ourselves. The balance of our employees are under citywide contracts that the city has likewise completed negotiations on. But it's these 8 contracts that will be before you at the end of the month for your consideration. We have put copies of all of these agreements up on our website. If you go to sfmta.com and search Memorandum of Understanding, you will see copies of all these, and you can see red lines, so you can see what has changed. So for each of these contracts, as well as those that represent the rest of our employees that were negotiated by the city, they are all for a 3-year term from July 1st of 2019 through June 30th of 2022. The funds are available in the fiscal 20 budget, which you've already approved, and will be allocated. We will incorporate into the next 2-year budget process, which we will be able to do, unlike last time, with full certainty of what our labor costs are going to be. So the core wage pattern for these and the city's agreements is as follows. In the first year, there's a 3% increase on July 1st, and then another 0.5% increase at the end of the calendar year, December of 2020. Then another 3% increase on July 1st of next year, and another, a 1% increase this December, then a 3% next July, another 0.5% the following December, followed by another 3% the beginning of the 3rd year, and another 0.5% halfway through the 3rd year. There are what we're referring to as recession triggers in these agreements, such that if the city controller's projections of the general fund budget deficit in March of the 2nd or 3rd year is in excess of $200 million, then that second 0.5% increase would be delayed by 6 months. So it gives just a little bit of wiggle room for the agency and the city in the case that the recession, or for whatever other reason, creates a projected general fund deficit. And again, this language is common to all of the agreements, both ours and the city's. There's a number of other kind of cleanup things, like using gender-neutral language throughout the agreements that were made. It's kind of standard across the board. All of ours and all the cities have all of those things. If anybody happens to spend time looking through the red lines, you'll see lots of little things that tried to clean up and standardize across the city. So just to give you some highlights for each of the 8, for the managers, which is MEA, there was some kind of cleanup of the leave process. There were a number of different types of leave, and what we have negotiated is just a flat 40 hours of management leave per year for each person. There's an increase in life insurance policy, and the total cost of the contract over the 3 years is $5.66 million. For the machinists, which is IAM Local 1414, something that we're really excited about is the establishment of new automotive machinists and mechanic apprenticeship programs. To your earlier point, it's not just operators that are part of our workforce challenges, but many of the skilled crafts, such as are represented by 1414. You may recall we played a video a little bit ago about some apprenticeships we already have in place with them, so we'll be expanding that program based on the success. A number of various other allowances, changing, all resulting in a 3-year cost of about $14 million. For SEIU 1021, and they represent station agents, car cleaners, parking control officers, our revenue and citations staff, a number of provisions, including dependent and retiree transit passes. And this is something you'll see repeated elsewhere. And, I was supportive of, our goal is to get more people on transit. And it's pretty minimal cost to us, but a good benefit for our employees and a good way to get people on transit. So something that I supported throughout these agreements. Longevity pay increase, and something that was very important to the employees, establishment of assault prevention and harm reduction committee, and a committee on diversity, fairness, and inclusion, something we've heard a lot from a number of folks, but particularly from SEIU. Cost of that contract over the 3 years, $15.64 million. For Local 6, IBEW, that's the electrical workers. These are the folks that maintain the trolley buses and the trains. We did make some equity adjustments, which means increases to wages for some difficult to recruit positions, particularly our power line series. These are the folks who work on high voltage power lines. Had a very difficult time getting those positions filled, as well as some other specialized units such as motor repair. We do a lot of our motor repair in-house because it's hard to find folks on the outside to do it, but it's hard for us to find folks to do that kind of work. So tried to make strategic adjustments to a few classes like that. Overall cost for Local 6 over the 3 years, $25.13 million. For TW Local 200, which is the transit supervisors, we made an adjustment for one of the top positions in that unit because we had a compression issue where, and depending on where they worked, there was some folks were getting compression with the folks they supervised. So if you worked in the control center, you got a bump because of compression. If you worked outside the control center, you didn't. So we had this inequity within this very important class that we used to manage our service. So corrected for that. We did add what you had referenced, Director Brinkman, the 9136 training position into the MOU. We've already secured the civil service approval and completed the effects bargaining as part of the overall bargaining for that position. So that is done. So we will be transitioning our trainers from their current classification into the 9136. The total cost of that one, $13.03 million. And then we have 3 different units within TW Local 250A. First, a small unit, the 7410 Automotive Service Workers. We increased emergency road repair premium and applied shift differentials to all paid time off consistent with other agreements. Cost of that over 3 years, $3.57 million. For the fare inspectors, we added another floating holiday, also expansion of transit passes, and made some provisions for holiday pay. Total cost of that over the 3 years is $2.36 million. And then finally, our biggest group, the transit operators, as you have already heard, changed the step progression from 5 years to 4 and moved the starting step from 63% of the top of class to 70% of top of class. Made a fairly significant change in the way our general sign-up works, which is the opportunity for folks to move around within the agency, which causes a bit of a training backup because when somebody moves from one mode to another, whether it's from diesel to trolley or trolley to rail or in any direction, we have to retrain them. So while preserving some of the flexibility that's important to the operators, but relieving ourselves of future training burden, that was something that was we were happy to get into the contract. The total cost for that one over 3 years, $74.86 million. So it's been a lot of work over a number of months, and I do want to thank all of our folks from the agency, all of our labor partners, both our own employees, the labor organizations employees, the folks from Department of Human Resources we worked with, numerous folks from the city attorney's office. A lot of these folks are working around the clock during different parts of this, as well as some folks that we brought in externally, generally through the city attorney's office, to give us some more bandwidth. But a lot of people did good work that I think will result in contracts that are good for the city and the agency, good for the employees, and ones that I hope will get your positive consideration on June 26th when they come your way.
May I just interrupt you there on that part of the report to echo the board's thanks to the many people you've thanked, starting first with the union leadership for their cooperation and diligence to this process and representation of their members, and then to all of the staff, from the city attorneys, from the former city attorneys who we brought back in, to our labor relations people, and all the folks that kept the board up to date and moved this process forward. We're grateful. And we're most grateful to you. There is no question in my mind that if you hadn't handled your upcoming departure in the very mature and responsible way that you did, that it would have impeded these negotiations, it would have upset matters, and instead we have a fantastic result, and thanks in large part to you and your personal responsibility here. So I'm grateful.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. It was certainly on the short list of things that I wanted to accomplish before leaving, was a successful conclusion of this. So glad we're close to at this point. Again, pending your positive consideration on June 26th, not to bias your vote. So now on to my regular report. I'll try to make this quick, but a lot of things to cover, but I know we do have a big agenda ahead. Just starting with Vision Zero, sorry that this is always, it seems now, the start to report, but do want to let you know that last Wednesday, a woman was struck and critically injured on Geary and Laguna. She was crossing on the east side of Geary from south to north, was hit by a car that was coming eastbound. It was happening around 5:30 in the morning, I believe, on Wednesday. On Friday, she succumbed to her injuries, so it became, I believe, our 15th fatality of the year. We originally was reported as an 85-year-old woman. I subsequently saw a report as a 70-year-old woman. We don't yet have a lot of good information yet. This is an intersection that we recently retimed to give people more time to cross the street, as well as to separate north and south, the north and south phases, so that we could reduce, as Director Eakin has previously suggested, potential conflicts of turning vehicles with crossing vehicles. And then this is also part of the Muni Forward and Vision Zero improvements as part of the Geary Corridor Phase 1 project, the first parts of which are under construction today, which at this intersection will include a widening of the crosswalks, the establishment of a median that will create for pedestrian refuge, and a reduced number of general travel lanes, because we'll be converting two of the a lane in each direction to transit-only lanes. So we've done signal timing increases. We have very significant changes coming within the next few years as part of the construction of Geary. We'll see if there's anything that we can get done in advance. But sorry to have to report that, and I know our condolences go out to her friends and family. Once we get more information from the police department, if there's anything more that we learn of or see, we will make further adjustments. Just following on Director Brinkman's and Borden's earlier comments, we did welcome 40-plus new operators into the agency. As you said, the largest class we've had in recent memory, and a number of whom came through the City Drive program, many of whom were former Chariot employees. But it's a very successful program where we're getting folks, kind of advancing them through the readiness process to be able to enter into operator training.